presented behind Patty. She gets up as her first presentation. She talks about One Design State of the Union, and that's usually a very depressing presentation, as you all could probably imagine. And then I get up, and I think I've followed Patty in past years because you guys needed to be pumped back up. And so I would get up. I sometimes describe myself as a motivational photographer, and I hope if you see some of my photos, you can't get excited about sailing. There's something wrong. So I get up and everybody gets all excited again. And this year I noticed that I'm not following Patty, but I'm following somebody who's talking about your financial and legal liabilities. So you probably do need still to be pumped up, and Sarah gives a great presentation on a very valuable service. But it shows you that the world is changing, because when I sailed 15 years ago, I never had insurance and nobody asked me for any. And now it's obviously something that you have to give a great deal of thought to. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to rethink what you're doing with your class. This is, if it's not motivational, it may be provocative. Some of the things I'm going to say you may not want to hear, or you may not want to think about. I guess somewhat like the insurance issue. Nevertheless, I think it's very important as class leaders and as people who are shaping the future of sailing that you give some of these things some thought. So that's really my goal. It's not to give you specific techniques. Those are coming in my workshops later in the day. So it's going to be down to two things. I want you to think about how you manage your image, and I think of that word in a generic sense, not in the actual photo. And I believe that by managing your image, you will become your vision. And you can think about a lot of things to manage as a class officer. You can manage the numbers, you can manage the membership, you can manage events. I'm proposing to you, I submit that what you should be giving a great deal of thought to is your image. In the world we live in today, that is probably the most important thing you can be doing from the top. So, in the midst of everything that you have to deal with, every time I come to these presentations, at the end of the thing, they're going to ask you what you learned and everything. And it always gets down to this. Everything that you come out of here with sounds really exciting, and you can hardly wait to do it. And everything you know for a fact when you get home is insurmountable. And so you have this tension between all the things you could be doing and the things you should be doing. And I submit, again, that you really should be focusing on the image that you are projecting of your class or your organization. So let's get into that a little bit. I'm going to talk about the basics of marketing. I'm going to talk about fundamental forces that I think are at work in our world today that's changing some of the ways you look at those fundamentals. I'm going to then spend the rest of the talk talking about how you communicate and sketch out a possible plan of action. So here's the first slide. Now, and if you take nothing away from my presentation, there is a thing on the evaluation form that did you get the key point? This slide is to get you to understand that you have to get the key point. This is a picture of Lindsay Lohan appearing at court time last year. It happened so many times it's hard to know. And I want you to just think about what you are looking at here. Who is this person? She's the top 10 Google ranked news item every time she appears in court. Every single time. I've kind of tracked this. It's a morbid curiosity I have. Can you count the number of cameras in that photo?
There's a lot.
There's a lot. I gave up when I counted 35. And what is the thing with the glitter? What is that little confetti thing, that little thing there? How many of you think that's an accident? Does anybody in here think that is an accident? Good. Because it isn't. Somebody in her PR team put that in the air as she walked by at a courthouse. If you cannot come to terms with the fact that your image is controlled by someone, if it's not you, someone is controlling it. And so it might as well be you, and it better be you before it turns into something like this. Does this make sense? This is the most important thing I can try to get across to you. And you all know who Lindsay Lohan is, don't you? And then how many would say you have the same degree of name recognition for sailing in your class? You don't. Okay, so in the old days, marketing consisted of the 4 Ps. How many of you are familiar with this concept? It was taught in school. It's a lot in business. Products, prices, places where you can buy the products, where you promote and then how you're promoting it. You narrow down your feature benefit set onto a target market. You identify those individuals. You tailor the product to their needs and their price points. You build a distribution channel that gets the product into their hands, and then you communicate all of this sort of thing. You promote this via advertising and messaging and so on. This is the classic marketing approach that probably was around before World War before World War II, and has survived well into the mid-90s. This is, if you think about it, what a lot of classes focus on, are these 4 points. The product is your boat, so there's class rules and measurements and certificates and builders and so on. The price, everybody's obsessed about how much does it cost to get into the boat. Place, where do I sail it? Where are the fleets? How do I get connected up geographically? And the 4th is, how do I promote it? Newsletters, websites, and so on. This is the way I submit most people have approached the development of sailing. I'm going to give you an alternate approach with the 4 E's, and I call it the me approach, because in the world we live in today, it's all about me, right? Come on, admit it. Yeah. You all have to admit it. Okay. I know it's hard to swallow, but it's true.
I'm over it.
Okay, so the key, and instead of a product, we're talking about an experience. People want to have experiences. They're not interested in products. You look at how things are promoted today, it's all about the experience. I had a personal situation of mine a year or so ago, who I happened to meet a colorectal surgeon, and I had spent a lot of time talking to him. And he had a next door neighbor, Gene Saltero, who's the national secretary for the snipe class. Lived together forever. It was weird how these things happen. And he said, "Oh, Gene's been trying to get me to go out sailing on the snipe for 20 years. So will you ever go?" "No." "So, well, you interested in sailing?" "Oh, yeah. I dream about sailing." "Well, but Gene, I don't know. So what do you want to get out of sailing?" And he looked at me and he said, 6 knots into the setting sun. And there you are. That's what he wants as an experience from sailing. 6 knots into the setting sun. Is he going to get that out of a snipe? Probably not. But he can get it if he goes to the Abacos and charters a boat. Right? If he goes to the Catalina Islands in Southern California, gets on a keel boat. And so, once I understood what the experience he wanted, it was very easy for me to give him resources and get him involved in sailing. But if you're not focused on the experience first, you're going to miss that. The second thing is, in the world we live in today, I'll just skip to the next slide because it covers some of these points. It's not just the price, it's the exchange and opportunity cost. We have so many things competing for our time and attention, and for our children's and grandchildren's time and attention. We are not lacking in things to try to go do. What we are lacking is in the time to do it and being able to put it at a high enough priority to have people engage. And so you are competing not just on the basis of price, you're competing on the basis of alternatives. If they have something better to do with their time, energy, and commitment, they will go do that. And sailing is an extraordinarily valuable thing to do with kids. If, however, it's not placed in that context and you just talk about the price, you're missing a key consideration in the decision making of the people who are having to make the decision to commit. Does everyone understand that? You yourself are time pressed. You are committed to sailing because you've already committed. right? You made that decision a long time ago. The trade-off for you is the time worth it, is the effort worth it, is easy for you to make because you've already made that decision. People who are entering into this process have not made that decision. And you have to understand that they are trading it off against many more alternatives than they ever had, ever in their lives. And it's just getting more and more to be the case. The second component is this notion of an extended community. You know, it used to be real easy. There was this class, there was a fleet, you really were homed in on the club and the fleet. Well, right now, extended communities are much more sophisticated than that. The key thing, and I'll just give you an example so you can get a sense of where I'm going with this. When you talk to young people and they talk about, well, I'm going to go sailing. If they go sailing and they post something on their Facebook page that, hey, I had a great day on the water sailing, if their friends in their network think that's cool, then that's supportive of them doing this. If it's not considered to be cool by their extended community, they won't do it. It's that simple. The rewards of doing it have to be extended into their extended community. The extended community has to see that the activity itself is a cool thing to be doing. Even though they themselves may not be doing it, they support the fact that one of their friends or one of their associates or somebody, one of their besties, is involved in this sport, and it's okay for them to go off and do this. And again, this doesn't, some people I can see this is not making you very comfortable, but that's the way things are working today. The last piece is, instead of promoting in classic advertising, you have to really step up the entertainment level. And I don't mean in some hokey way, but it has to be in ways that keep people engaged in enough that they get more out of it than some philosophical thing or some aspect of being on the water. It has to be more social, it has to be more engaged. This doesn't necessarily mean throw more parties. It doesn't necessarily mean have a stand-up comedian. But you have to find ways to keep people engaged at an entertainment level because you're competing, again, remember, you're competing with entertainment as an alternative to the use of their time and money. So this is driven by what I think are two things, certainly these things that are happening in the broader picture. And I want you to just, again, this is kind of the philosophy section, so if you kind of glaze over, that's okay, it'll be gone in about 3 slides. Two things have changed who we are as human beings. One was the invention of linear speech. It was around the 2nd millennium BC. So we could actually articulate our words and thoughts. And the second is the invention of what's referred to in the philosophical world as the technical image, not the artistic, but the technical image, the ability to capture via a technical device. This is relatively recent. It's about 120 years old. Images are now the increasingly preferred mode of communication. There have been a lot of interesting studies on this. If you give somebody a paragraph of words or you give them a picture, the first thing they do is they look at the picture. They may or may not read the words, but they will stay with the picture. And that almost doesn't matter how bad the picture is. And it almost doesn't matter how well written the words are. Sorry, Carol, would you not agree that this is pretty much increasingly the case? Right. It's pervasive, and its exposure is staggering. I saw a statistic that somewhere in the past year, the cameras that were available in the world today, they're all increasing at an exponential rate, right? All of you hold a camera in your pocket probably at this point, right? 50 billion photos were taken last year by professional grade digital SLRs. Not the point and shoots and not the camera phones. Just the pro equipment. 50 billion. And how many people are on the planet?
7 billion.
Current events, we know recently?
7.
That's incredible. It's emotionally compelling and connecting. Photography, and this is kind of one of the philosophical points that I use, photos connect to you emotionally in a very visceral way, almost instantaneously. It's very difficult to get that with words. It is endlessly remembered and endlessly repeatable. You can always go back and look at a photo and it conjures up in your imagination all the previous photos. Here's a picture that first taken in 1838. It's believed to be the first picture of a human being. It's right there. Do you see them down here? This is actually an amazing thing because back in these days, the daguerreotypes, you had to expose these for 15 or 20 minutes. And so the fact that this person stood there long enough for this to happen, it's probably not an accident. So this is the first photo of a human being that's ever been found. This is the world of the media today. This is a picture I saw Wednesday night at the Penn State press conference. Again, I can't count the cameras in that room. I don't know how many are there. It's overwhelming. Media dominates the world we live in today. Here's an interesting picture. How many of you have taken pictures that look like this? Right? Okay. So now I'm going to talk about what makes a picture interesting. Is this photo interesting to anyone in the room here? No.
Probably the guy drawing.
Yeah. This is my brother. Down here, he's clipped off. The photographer was their bow man on their J-22. This is Skeeter Chilton. Skeeter and my brother have been sailing together since they were juniors. They're now in their mid to late 50s. They are at a J-22 North Americans. I think it's in Michigan. The reason this picture is interesting is because they are leading the fleet for the first time in their frickin' sailing careers. Okay? They're leading all the rock stars in the J-22 North Americans, and Ken can tell you, and I'm sure some of you know many of these sailors, they have never, ever finished above the 50% line in any J-22 regatta in their entire lives. They will never, ever be in this place again in their entire sailing careers. Skeeter has this photo at about a 3x4 blow-up over her mantelpiece. Now to them, this picture is the pinnacle of their sailing careers. Does this picture say that to any of you?
No.
No. And therein is the problem. If you know the backstory, right, then it's an incredible photo. Because now, once I've told you the story, you relate to it. You understand it. You understand the emotions that these two people are experiencing right then and there, don't you? Isn't it cool? It's really cool. And and you can see almost Skeeter is afraid to believe it. It's hard to see because it's underexposed. It's not even well executed. Well, whatever. Okay. So this is what's going on in your head. Here are the words. When trapped after a start by a boat above you, ease the sheets 2 inches and foot to clear air. Is there anyone in this room who has doesn't understand what that means? If you do, there's a workshop for you later. Very clear, right? There is no ambiguity there. It's 2 inches. It's not 1 inch. You're supposed to foot to clear air. Everyone knows what that word, those 4 words, foot to clear air. You know what that word, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? It's easy. Okay. You get the words, you read them, you parse them. We have grammar, we have meaning, we have special language, we have special assignment of words. Here to all this stuff. And then we figure out what to do. Okay. Now let's say we were looking at a photo. This is Peter Komet with his daughter Sheehan. You get the same thing there? Because that's exactly what they're doing. They are easing their sheets. They got trapped. They're easing their sheets. They're looking up to make sure that they're getting them right. And they're going to go foot off into clear air. Right? Now, if I showed you an instructional video of them doing this, you would probably figure it out if you really, really paid a lot of attention. So the issue is, how is it that the magic, somehow you get this picture and you turn it into the intended response? That's the issue. So we're going to do some exercises. Okay, everyone get out your pencil and paper. This is the participatory part. Okay, now you really have to start. This is more fun from here. So the philosophy is over. Now this is participatory. Get out a pen and paper. We'll go through these real quick. I'm going to show you a picture. And I want you to do the following. I want you to think. I want you to just kind of clear your mind. I want you to just look at the picture just as it comes up. And I want you to make a little number. I want you to draw a square. So draw a square. And on that square, I want you to put a number where corresponding to the very first place you looked in the image. And then I want you to go to the second place, and I want you to put another 2. Okay? And then a 3, and if necessary, a 4. So I'm going to let you just look at the photo. I want you to put little numbers in your square, kind of where your eye was drawn first and second. Okay, everyone understand the exercise? Okay, here we go. And don't think too hard, just roll with it. See the picture? Everyone ready? Okay? Now, how many of you did that? Who had 1? Almost everybody. Who had 2? Okay, who had 3? Right. Okay. My intent as a photographer shaped your response to this photo by the way I took the photo and the way I composed it. I wanted you to feel the tension of this individual. First thing you looked at was a person, not a boat. Does everyone get that? The first thing you looked at was a person who had an emotional content for you to latch onto. It's key. Okay? And what is this scene? What is this situation? Everybody knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
He wants to clear. He doesn't know if he can make it. Because they're going to tack right back to the finish line and he's pinned. Okay? How many of you felt the tension in your stomach when you saw this shot? Right? That's what I'm trying to get. All right, next photo. Draw a new square with new numbers. Okay, ready? Who had the skipper's face first? Crew's face first? Right. This is the problem. He's in the foreground, the skipper's in the background. So sometimes it's the foreground face that gets you before the background face. But the point is here again, 2 faces. You latched into the emotions. All right, so you looked at 1 and 2. Who had 3? Who kind of wandered off the page? Is what is this guy looking at? What is the skipper looking at? Another boat. Where is he? Leeward mark. Rounding outside the leeward mark. And why is he yelling? He's complaining to the other guy that he's taking it too wide. Right? Here's one. New photo, new square, new numbers. You ready? Here we go. Who had 1 or 2? Right. 3? Anyone looking to see if the port driver is paying attention? And anyone looked at 4? Who looked at 4? And why'd you look at 4?
Couldn't quite see what it was, but it's an interesting color. When you study the photo a little bit, you start to wonder, is the port tack boat tacking or are they preparing to tack? And what's the clue for that? Luffing jib, right? If they're coming up, their jib would be backwinding already. They're not coming up, are they? Okay, one more. Why is it the 49ers? We always show crash shots of the 49ers. Okay, ready? We've had one. Okay, the point's being made, right? The first thing you latch onto is a face because it connects to you emotionally stronger than any physical object. I want you to think about the significance of what I just said in the context of your communication programs and the image you project of your class. What is the most dominant photo that you publish? Of the boat. Why do you do that? It's the people. It's the faces that convey the emotion and the experience that we're trying to get people hooked on. Nobody can relate to a physical device if they have no familiarity with it. It's like that photo of my brother and Skeeter. You have no idea what's going on there. There's just a couple of random people doing something really and there's a bunch of nothing in the background. Okay, here's one more.
Ouch.
Richard Clark and Tyler in the Bahamas. You know, it's a toss-up between 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Some of you look at the mark. How many of you saw the mark first because you're judges and PROs? Right? Because you know that's the conflict point right there pretty quick, don't you? And then you're looking maybe at the face of the skipper to go, oh, WTF again. We hit this thing. And Tyler's going, dude, you hit the mark. Okay, exercise number 2. Betsy leaps into action. And I have to put down the microphone for 1 second. Okay, new exercise. I'm going to show you, so that was an attempt to show you that by creative control, you can shape and influence the way people respond to the images that you present to them. I gave you a very bad example of my brother, and I gave you hopefully a few better examples that gives you some insight into why you think a photo is compelling and how you can then carefully select your photos to make a similar connection to your audience based on the type of experience and the emotional response you hope to achieve. Okay? So now the next one, I'm going to show you a series of photos with no commentary at all. Take 30 seconds. And I want you to just free associate, just watch the slides clip by. And every word that pops into your head, I want you to jot that word down. Okay? And don't make this again more complicated. It's 3 or 4 words. The first 2 or 3 that, wow. If it's wow, write that down. Okay? Everyone ready? All right, here we go. And then after, we're going to shout them out, and Betsy's going to write them down. Okay. So, shout them out. Betsy writes them down.
Shoot.
What was the first one?
Shoot.
Shoes?
Shoot.
Oh, shoot.
You might want to change some letters.
Darn.
Hi. Windy. Pull.
Oh, baby.
Go for it. Spray.
Quick.
Action. Hot shots. Power.
Power. Somebody say power. Yeah.
Stress.
Stress.
Balance. Physical.
Physical.
Strong.
Strong. Hairy. Okay. You get the gist of it, right? You all had a similar response to this series of photos. Now, some of you may or may not know, but this is a 100-year-old antique design of a class that was recently taken out of the Olympics because it was irrelevant to modern sailing. Is there any word on here that's not relevant to modern sailing today? Right? So again, you have enormous control over how people perceive you with the with how you are presented, the image that you project. Now, some people don't bother to look at the images, and they don't bother to have an objective assessment of their response. But for those who do, and I'm really talking to the people who are relatively newcomers to your class, they won't be burdened by these prejudices and political issues. They will simply be responding to what they see. And if you show any group of people this series of photos, usually they go, wow, that's amazing. I had no idea sailing could be so exciting and so just incredible. Right, it is. We all know this, don't we? But if you show a bunch of poorly selected, random, boring, kids upside down crying on their sunfish pictures of sailing, you're going to get a completely different set of responses, and you're going to get a series of words that are very different. So as an exercise for you as a class officer, I would encourage you to do this exercise in reverse. Visualize, conceptualize, what are the words we want to have associated with our class? What conceptual ideas, what are the words? And I want you to write them down. And I want you to take the pictures that you're currently using that represent your class, and I want you to see, do these pictures say those words? And if they don't, you need to change the pictures. Because people are going to get the words that are with the pictures you're showing, not the words you hope for. Okay, thanks, Betsy. Okay, so camera takes out two dimensions, depth and time. Somehow we have to use our imagination as viewers of images to put those two things back. We're constantly putting back the third dimension, and we're constantly extrapolating forward and backward in time. The significance of the photo then becomes a synthesis of the path that you use to go through the photo and your personal experience of the behavior that you're observing, right? If you show pictures to people who don't have any way to connect to it in their own personal experience, the picture has no meaning. That was the point of my Skeeter and my brother's photo. So you have to connect it to the people in a way that they can understand. And that is almost always through an emotional connection. It's through the faces of the sailors that sail. It's not of the sailboats that they're sailing. And you create your own reality by doing so. Reality is not something that we are standing in observance of. We are creating our own reality every day. Okay, so the consequences of all this is consumption is an extremely sophisticated process. How many of you are in the kind of the mode currently where if we have a photo, we'll use it? It's okay, you can admit it. And any photo that we have, we'll go ahead and use it, right? You have to get away from that. You have to have intent. You have to say, this is the way we want to be perceived. These are the images and the concepts that we want to convey. This is the photos, this is the image that we're going to project. Okay? It also has to be well executed. The technique has to actually be well done. And you have to connect it in a way that connects to, ultimately you have to connect down into that really base, deep emotional connection. So what should you do as officers? First, articulate your vision. And I've given you 2 or 3 ways of trying to do that. It's a good exercise. Get your class officers together at one of your meetings and just spend 15 or 30 minutes just doing the kinds of things that we just did here. This causes you to kind of get out of the box a little bit, get off the financial spreadsheet and off the membership rosters, and start thinking about what emotional things are we projecting. If you're a class that's very family-oriented, I would want to see a lot of photos of families engaged in sailing. This is something, I got beat up pretty good for this at one yacht club. I said this, but when you walk in the front door of your sailing club, or you walk into the first spot where somebody kind of comes towards you in some way, what image are you projecting? Just look at it as an outside observer. Some clubs you walk up and you see this very formidable security system with these massive gates, right, with signs warning you to stay away. Is that the image you want to project? Some classes you walk in and you come up to their club and you see a bunch of boats just kind of sprinkled around in random fashion out in the parking lot. Their covers are all kind of gruddy. The lawn needs to be mowed. The parking lot needs to be cleaned up. And the trash cans are overflowing. Is this a place you want to hang around? When you walk in the clubhouse, is the first thing you see 55 photos, faded black and white, of Commodores past? Does this look like an exciting crowd to you? That's what got me in trouble once before. I am in no way belittling the contributions of those Commodores and the historical aspects of your organization. What I'm trying to get you to understand is put the foot forward first that you want people to connect to. If you are a family-oriented club, the first thing people should see are cool, big pictures of families having fun at one of your events at your club. Right? Doesn't that make sense? Put the Commodores in the boardroom or somewhere else where they are the third and fourth thing or something that people connect to in your organization. Don't put them in the lobby. Don't put them in a place where it's the first thing people see, unless that's what you want to come across as. If you're the New York Yacht Club, maybe that's the connection you want to invoke with people. Maybe that is the target market that you're trying to pursue, the community and the legacy that you're trying to establish. You want people who resonate to that in your club, perhaps. Don't know. But if it's not, change it. Okay, every person has a role here. Class officers, the event organizers. Event organizers have 100 things they have to try to deal with now. You really need, I would encourage you all to give serious consideration to stepping up your support of media boats, media infrastructure at your venues. If you're hosting a national or international event, it is almost now a requirement that you host multiple media boats with drivers. The motors need to work, they need to be given access to the course, and you need to have online internet availability at a high bandwidth to the media. At a Star World Championship, we typically have 16 to 30 credentialed photographers and writers at a Star Worlds. Okay? You have to support that with infrastructure. If you don't, the coverage of the event suffers, and as a result, your event doesn't look good, and your organization, your hosting authority, doesn't look good either. PROs and head judges, have a conversation with the media team. Sort out where people are going to be, what access is allowed, not allowed. Establish minimum approach distances and no-go zones. I have this meeting every time we have a World's Championship. I'm essentially the offshore fleet director of the non-race committee, non-judge fleet. And I had this big, long conversation with the coaches and the spectator drivers and everybody. I give them all these zones and where they can't go, no go. They ignore them. We come back, we have another conversation. And we're usually about the third day and they get the point. You have to establish these things and you have to talk about them before you go out. The number one, we did a survey. Surveyed a bunch of Star Sailors who said, what's most important to you concerning event coverage? Number one, dominated, priority, timely results, post-provisional results. It's okay to say provisional. Everybody gets it. But if you delay because you think you need to wait for some protest or some filing period and all this, you just create more uncertainty and more trash talking. You don't need that. Post-provisional results, let them go. Update the results when it's appropriate. Keep moving. Needs to be easy to find and accessible online. It's a very difficult area in terms of website management, web presence management. We can talk about that sometime later. Probably the best thing you can do is to put together a short daily summary. 2 or 3 paragraphs at the most. A couple of pictures. If you have a video clip, make it very short. And the results. Put that together and get that distributed every day. It's key. Okay, stickers and podiums. If you're going to have stickers, make them readable. The stickers on the left are barely readable. And think about, why are you putting a sticker on a boat? Well, it's partly because then everybody at the regatta can see them, but everybody already sees them. Why are the stickers on the boat? Because they're going to appear in photographs. Those photographs are going to appear in media, and that's what your sponsor is hoping to get, is media exposure. So if you have a sticker that you can't read, have you done your sponsor any favors? Make them very clearly readable. So like, look at the one on the right. That's the 100-year centennial sticker for the Star class. That's readable. It's in every photo of every star taken in our centennial year. Why? Because it's on the very front of the boat. It's hard to avoid that spot. Okay. Carol did a great job on this. Think about the channels of people and the audiences that you're talking to. Each of them have unique and specific requirements. If you're writing for editorial purposes, if you're promoting an international or national event, Dave Reed told me, he and I have discussed this many times, and it got down to for Dave Reed, to get into sailing world, what he wants is a photo of winners winning. And it would be nice if they were doing it in the Bahamas. And you can sort of see that in these photos. You've got to have really nice backgrounds and backdrops in your photos. But they want to see people excelling. They want to see people doing something really amazing. And so if you don't have a photo like that, don't send it to Dave, because he's not going to look at it. Advertising is a little different. There's usually a message that they're trying to convey along with the. They have an ad slogan or something, and so they're always looking for branding, and then they're also looking for something that conveys the notion of what it is they're promoting. Here's another couple of examples. This shot on the left is our 2008 world champion. They were actually, and this is at the 2009 Worlds in Sweden. He had just won the first race of the event, and they were sailing in. It was quite a ways back in. And Mateusz and Dominic, I've shot them so many times that they now know the drill. When I show up, they drop over the rail and pretend like they're actually racing. They're not racing here, okay? But look at the shot. I mean, could Harkin have asked for a better shot? They had on they're sponsored by Harkin, and they were wearing their coats. They had to Photoshop the hiking stick because he doesn't use their battle stick, but I didn't tell you that. But there, see, look, great, world champion. He's wearing his Harkin gear. He looks like he's really going at it, and he's looking right at you. Isn't that great? That was done after the race. There's a Seiko shot. Seiko's the class sponsor for the 49er. And they give 10 kites to the sailors at every championship event that make them available on a loan basis. They can borrow them for, I think, up to 3 events, and they have to turn them back in or something. Anyway, the idea is, gee, guess what? Now you've got 10 guys out on the water with Seiko kites up. And so I just spend the whole championship just looking for combinations of Seiko kites, and then eventually I find this shot, and I get it. Okay, here's some class newsletters. The one in the middle is kind of, this is at the Star Europeans last summer. There were 144 entrants. This is the race for 100th place. They were at the finish line. And so we use it because it's kind of everybody in the class kind of knows that story of the Serbians. That's a whole story in itself, I'll tell you sometime. This one, Snipes, there are 4 juniors lined up here at the Junior Nationals. The 49er class is probably the most aggressive class that I know that makes it and the designer, Bethway, he understands this because he used to do Aussie skiffs. The 49ers clearly understand image and how to use their boats as platforms for projecting image. The the country code flags were a big, huge thing. It took them 3 years to get this through ISAF. But when they did, it hit every major sailing publication in the world overnight. This photo I took at the 2010 Worlds in the Bahamas. The first time the flags were all up at the same time, it had thousands of downloads instantly. So, I see by my Seiko Velotura watch, which is, isn't it a handsome watch?
Oh, yes.
I see my time's up. I hope you've got the key point here. Manage your image. If you manage your image, other things will follow. If you don't get ahead of managing your image, someone else is going to fill in the blanks for you, and you don't want that to happen. You don't want them to fill in something random. You want them to get your message. Okay? So thank you all very much, and I think we're now going to lunch. Are there any quick questions?